Could tiny houses be the solution for Reno's homeless problem?
This is an interesting concept. Yesterday, we took you on a tour of tiny house villages in Seattle to see what's working there. Today, we wanted to find out what it would take to build them here. Ariana Bennett saw the villages firsthand on a tour last week. And Ari, it sounds like there's a lot of enthusiasm for a project like this.
Yeah, there definitely is plenty of enthusiasm. Some of our city leaders and the head of our homeless shelter think this is the best option to get our homeless population off the streets and back onto their feet. And they say they are determined to make it happen. It's a story you'll see only on Channel 2.
This one's a lot bigger for like families.
This is a community room.
I think it's incredible.
After seeing this, how badly do you want it?
Oh, I want it. I want it. I want it for our community.
Reno has a homeless problem. So for possible solutions, leaders look to these tiny house villages in Seattle.
The key to this is that it's only temporary. We don't want people staying here long term.
In fact, they try to keep residents just 5 or 6 months, helping them with job applications, getting clean and sober, and finding permanent housing. The maximum stay is 2 years.
One of the first people we moved off the street was a homeless veteran, and he had been homeless for 6 years.
And Lee says it's very effective. Out of 160 people in the villages last year, 103 of them have gotten jobs. 40 of them have been reunited with family and friends.
We're actually changing people's lives. It's been incredible.
Each village is run through a partnership between the city and a low-income housing organization using equal amounts of tax dollars and donations. The houses cost $2,200 each, but these were all built and donated by high school programs, church groups, and tribes. The city pays for sanitation and trash, donations pay for the rest, and the residents staff the village themselves. It's relatively inexpensive to run a village. To put it in perspective, one of these costs Seattle about $200,000 a year. The homeless shelter in Reno costs about $3 million a year. But building a village in Reno still isn't a simple process.
There's no public funds set aside for this type of activity.
Thomas says they'd need to find federal dollars or donations to pay for a tiny house village. They'd also have to work out zoning issues and, most importantly, find a place to put them.
We're going to have to go through a public process, and in that public process, I think we'll get a real good sense of what the community thinks about this type of housing.
Now, the Reno City Council is already considering 4 lots for possible overflow shelters, and I'll give you an idea of the area they're considering. This is the corridor between East 4th Street and the Truckee River. The train tracks run right there. Now, for reference, here's the current homeless shelter right across the tracks from Greater Nevada Field. Now, these are the 4 sites they're looking at. They could put overflow shelters there, or they could build tiny house villages.
If we could get a location, get some of the basic infrastructure in place, I think we could put this together quickly. And until we can do better, we should do something like this.
But they'll have to get the public on board. In Seattle, Lee says they did have some pushback from neighbors, but a year or so in, they've had very few complaints. So how likely are we to see tiny house villages in the biggest little city?
I think it is very possible. I think with community collaboration and volunteerism and support, we can, at the city, we can find ways to make this happen.
Now, I spoke with Pat Cashell, he's the head of our local homeless shelter, about how many tiny houses we would need. He says if we could even build 40 of them, which is a little smaller than the big village you just saw, we'd be able to get every homeless veteran in Reno off the streets. Now, if you'd like to see the full tour of the village and meet some of the residents, we did that story yesterday, and you can find it at KTVN.com.